content, the more difficult it's going to become for them to actually make those determinations between it. So what's their next trick? We're not necessarily sure. So we got the fundamentalists and the apostates and the heretics, and without going into deep detail about them, I think we sometimes know who these people are. It's like, it's all about your H tags, or it's all about your on-page SEO, or it's all about the backlinks. Well, maybe it's not about any of those things. Maybe for some people, and I'm going to get into this later, who are just in the content business and don't want to convert customers, it's really about content. Atlantic Monthly doesn't do much SEO anymore, and we're going to go back to a quote about that later on, and it has fundamentally to do with the type of business that they're in. I'm going to make a confession. I used to be this person here, the apostate. People who deny the existence of Google. Well, I didn't deny it, but anyway, who believe that great content naturally results in high rankings and all that. And actually, I think that that's true. But it's not just great content. It's shareable, diggable content that's contextual, that is in the right place at the right time. The 4 Ps is still SEO, and all the good things that anybody who's responsible for content creation or content optimization, as was the thesis of my partner's presentation, is really about. I'm still a little bit of this person, but I'm trying to be a whole lot of the other person, and where there are gaps, I'm trying to fill those in a little bit. I'm just going to, because I'm probably running over time, go through a few quotes, some related to theology, some related to SEO, but a few nonetheless. So concerning the gods, I cannot know either that they exist or that they do not exist, for what form they may have, for there is much power, much to prevent one's knowing, the obscurity of the subject, and the shortness of a man's life. I think that's to the point. He didn't have a lot of time to waste. He was going to live to 40, so. I like this one even better. P.Z. Myers, not really a quote, but has described theology as smart old white guys inventing rationalizations for what they personally want to believe. And I think that's what it comes down to. Why was I an apostate, and why is the strictly scientific SEO person that way? Because it's what they know, and they're comfortable with it, and that's what it is. So really what it is about is getting outside of our comfort zone and learning into areas that we're not necessarily that comfortable. Myers sees no difference in the principle between mutually contradictory theologies, neither do I, different denominations and sects, and even religious cults. He also believes that the answers to important questions have come from outside theology. So 2 points about that. 1, ecumenical. 2, use other very well-developed disciplines as a lens for understanding whatever yours is. Could be the classics, could be history, could be philosophy, whatever. Jump right in. The humanities are a rich source in human experience and what's really the game of creating great content for people to consume. My last one has to do specifically with the content part of it. Does anybody know the Atlantic magazine story in the last 10 years? Interestingly, Great American Magazine, certainly an institution up there with New Yorker, Harper's, and all of that. They went online. They had a paid subscription. Their physical deliveries and magazine purchases were dwindling. At a certain point, a very risky move in 2008, they decided to end their paywall and just open the gate to everyone who came in. Since then, they've become one of the most, up there with New York Times, killing New Yorker, killing Harper, and any of those other people. Salon Magazine, same thing. Great content, open to the public, tons of advertising revenue, a great source of inspiration. And one of their big things is they don't do SEO anymore. All they're about is creating content that gets easily shared and dug by people. They write headlines for people, not machines, and they're getting 40% of their traffic from social. So Google doesn't really have much to do with it. So is Google God? I would say Google is a god, and we're developing eventually a kind of a pantheon of gods. Hopefully, one that's going to allow us to compete in different ways, in ways that specifically help our business. Pardon me? Oh, how did advertising? It's advertising, yeah. Although they have many different properties now, so I think that they're also, they're selling apps. There's some higher grade products that they provide as well. Yeah. Are there any questions at all? Not one? Yes.
What would you say when people tell you Google is evil?
I would say that if the way people use Google is evil, if you're talking specifically about them giving data over to the government, they've actually not been as they've been a little bit more reticent to do so than some of the other big data handlers.
Yeah.
They have a principle which a lot of people may not agree with, and is there's no reason for privacy if you have nothing to hide. And I think some people are getting that. That's a little bit of a Big Brother scenario. I think that their goal is to not be evil. I think that they would argue that giving over data that would help protect people, and it's always a trade-off, right? And that's the argument that everyone's making these days, which is you have to choose in this day and age between security and privacy, and Google's going to do its best to balance that out. It's a bit of a gray area, evil being way over here, and it's probably a little bit more like your D&D continuum of ethics in some senses. That's my take on it.
I know this wasn't a discussion about tools, but I would like to dig into the process of doing an SEO experiment, and then sort of associate the tools with that as you go through it. Do you do that, or?
I would say that I have done that in the past. The part of the challenge for our business is because we're dealing with clients a lot specifically for our own SEO and the work that we do in creating content. We don't do that. Should we do that? We should definitely do that. It's really about how much time you have to do it. We certainly look at the behavior of people and what the kind of long tail is of, really you can't look at anything in a very, very short term, especially when it comes to SEO. So for me, there's no easy answer to that other than to say that if I write an article that I consider of personal value, if it gets 5 hits against another blog that may get 100 hits, and I look at the bounce rate, I compare the bounce rates, and to me, I don't immediately get discouraged by like the immediate traction. Now we can actually test it instantly by the amount of sharing that we see and we learn. My testing is actually in the same way that I test in conversation. It's something that I'm saying resonating with people. If not, I'm going to maybe change direction. So if my partner's content is getting shared more often, what's he doing with his blog posts that I'm not doing? And maybe I've got something, maybe my headlines are great, but I'm being too long-winded. And that's not maybe, that's for sure. So testing, not so much. But I mean, I have done testing like that. And if you're taking on offline, you could talk about some of the tools that I've used, and maybe you could talk about the ones you have too, sure.
What do you want me to walk away from this talk? What should I remember walking away from this talk? What things should I learn? Should I learn from what you just said?
I think that what our basic curiosity and the way that we learn things and that we want to learn things and pursue things should be the path that we take. If we're interested in a certain area, whether it relates to necessarily to our business or not, now, not as a blog writer for a business. You're writing content for your business, that's something else. But for me, the kind of more sources of information and the more sources of inspiration, whether it's art or humanities or literature or social criticism, any of it is all valuable in the grand scheme. If I found myself one day reading nothing but how-to business books and other people's blogs and Mashable and TechCrunch, and I shoot me now. And the problem is, it's not that it's not informative, but I think that there is a diminishing marginal return in a lot of the technology content that's out there. And there are a lot of people who support me in that. So what I would say is it's a bit of a Jerry Maguire. Write less content, research it better, try to improve the value of that content. Doesn't mean you have to have one big, scary long blog. Break it out, create a series, answer a few questions along the way that are serious and more deep potential. It's a bit vague, but I think that's it. I really got the message from the philosopher from Google in that sense, that I like the idea of being able to bring kind of the humanism back into it. The technology is all enabling, but it's about we're the consumers and the creators. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate your time. I have two brief announcements before I yield the floor to Bill. One is that we are involved in a show with a fellow named Mark Schaefer. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's a big social whiz guru. He writes the blog called Grow. We are co-sponsors of his Social Meets event that's going to be happening here in Montreal on Independence Day, 4th of July in the US. And we're also hosting a startup marketing event over at Brendan and Brendan's, which is in Old Montreal on St. Paul. And it's a startup marketing 101, somewhat of a how-to course, drawing on all of our collective experience and kind of helping businesses get going and make the right decisions for marketing. So that's it. Thank you very much.